Darren Armstrong was not allowed to have contact with the two siblings. Unfortunately, their mother had chosen to ignore this safeguard, a decision that cost a little girl's life.
Welcome back, and thanks for being here. I'm Cassie, and this is Wicked World. If you haven't checked out a Wicked World on Patreon yet and want to help further support the channel, then click the link in the description box below. There, you'll have access to over 40 exclusive videos, with new ones being added each and every month. Now, the story I have for you today is about a little girl who lost her life because her mother was too selfish and stubborn and refused to listen to authorities. This is the story of Allie Jayden Doyle. Allie Jayden Ann Doyle was born on July 5, 2019, to her mother, Jade Dempsey, and her father, Dylan Doyle. She had 4 other siblings, one being her little brother, whom she lived with. Allie Jayden was said to be sweet, sassy, and funny. Allie Jayden's mother, Jade, had been born in Dublin, and she had been placed in foster care when she was only 10 months old, as both her parents were drug addicts. Jade had become pregnant at the age of 17 and given birth to twin boys. These 2 children were taken into state care, however, after she proved that she was unable to properly care for them, and they were later adopted. She'd then gone on to have a daughter with another partner in 2017 when she was 21 years old, and this daughter had been in long-term foster care ever since she was 8 months. Jade had then entered into a relationship with Allie Jayden's father, Dylan, in 2018. After Allie was born, the family moved to Northern Ireland, where Jade became pregnant with their second child, Allie's younger brother. But the relationship between Jade and Dylan was marred by episodes of domestic violence, as well as drug use on Dylan's part, possibly Jade's as well, though it's unconfirmed. The couple would then end up separating after one particular incident of an assault in September of 2020, just a few weeks after their second child was born. After the split, Jade took her 2 children and went to live with a friend, before then being housed by the Northern Ireland Housing Executive at 9 Sycamore Drive in Dungannon in March of 2021. By that time, Jade was already in another relationship with a man named Darren Armstrong, who she'd met through social media in late 2020. According to Jade, she fell for him immediately, as Darren had love-bombed her right from the start. 35-year-old Darren Armstrong had also grown up in foster care due to his stepfather's addiction to alcohol and his exposure to domestic violence in the home. Darren also had a long-standing history of both drug and alcohol abuse, and his previous relationships had been filled with violence. He had been the subject of a restraining order that his former partner got against him in November of 2018. And his prior criminal record consisted of 77 different convictions. This included 10 drug offenses, 2 convictions for harassment, 1 conviction of false imprisonment, and a number of convictions for various assaults. In May of 2021, Darren had actually been convicted of common assault. And at that time, he was found to have breached 2 previously imposed suspended sentences. He'd then been sentenced to 3 concurrent terms of 3 months in custody. But he had appealed these sentences at the beginning of July of 2021, and this appeal had been approved, so instead, he was given 1 year and 6 months of just probation. So absolutely not the kind of guy that you would want to have around you when you have children in your life. Social services became involved with Jade Dempsey and her children from April of 2021 on. Both Allie and her younger brother had been placed on the Child Protection Register, as Child Services was worried about Jade's relationship with Darren. A child protection plan was then drawn up, which ordered that Darren not only not live in the home with the children, but have no contact with them whatsoever. However, Jade would tell social workers that she did not believe that Darren was a risk to her children, since he had never been convicted of any offenses towards kids. She also claimed that the previous allegations made by Darren's ex-girlfriends were all lies. But then, on May 12, 2021, when a social worker paid a visit to the home, Jade would admit that Darren was a bad man. However, just a week later, she stated that her children wanted to see Darren and she was frustrated that he couldn't have contact with them. She then informed the social worker that regardless of the child protection plan, she was going to meet Darren in public with the kids. Since Jade was so adamant about Darren seeing Allie, Jayden, and her younger brother, social services decided to set up several risk assessment sessions with him. He would end up having an interview with them in June, July, and in August. And Darren would tell social workers that his relationship with Jade and the children was good. He also said that he would FaceTime them nearly every day, and both the kids called him Dad. He then spoke about how he saw a long-term future between him and Jade, and how the two had discussed having Jade's older daughter return to her care, and he would step up as a father figure. When social workers went to visit Jade and the children on August 4th, Jade would tell them that things were over between her and Darren because he was getting much too controlling in the relationship. Though only 2 days later, on the morning of August 6, 2021, Jade and her 2 children were picked up from their home by taxi at 10:20 a.m. and taken to Darren's home at 19 Park Avenue, Dungannon. When the taxi arrived at his house, Darren came out and took Allie, Jayden's little brother, out of the taxi, still in his car seat. And Jade would take Allie, Jayden out of the taxi and into his house. She then left the 2 children with Darren and walked to get a bus to Belfast. A WhatsApp video was taken by Darren and sent to Jade shortly after she left the house. And in it, Allie, Jayden is seen sitting on the couch with a pacifier in her mouth, looking off into the distance as if she's watching TV. Also, shortly after Jade had left the home, Darren sent her a text message that said, "Your son is seriously melting my head. He won't stop." Less than a half hour later, one of Darren's neighbors would hear a loud screeching noise that sounded like a child throwing a tantrum. The neighbor then heard 2 more loud screeches, but it sounded like the child had quieted down after the third. By 11:04 a.m., Darren was calling 999 and requesting an ambulance to his home, saying that 2-year-old Allie had a head injury.
But you need to tell me exactly what's happened and try and calm yourself so we can help her.
The child was playing with the infant in the sitting room.
Was playing with what, sorry?
The infant, her brother.
Oh, right, yes, yep.
And her brother has clocked it's a shaker thing. He hit it off, he hit her with the shaker thing.
Is it like a maraca?
Yeah, it's like a wee shaker toy.
Yeah.
And her head then has actually hit off the fireplace.
Okay. How old is she?
She's 2.
Okay.
And the lump in the back of her head is severely big. It is a big, massive lump.
Right. Okay. At the moment, is she awake?
No, she's coming in out of sickness.
Okay. At the moment, is she breathing?
Hang on to here. Hang on. Yeah, you can hear her. She's breathing, but she's like a foamy breath.
Right. Okay. All right. Is there any serious bleeding?
No, there's no bleeding at all. It's just a big bump in the back of the head.
All right. Okay. So, like I say, I'm organising the help for you now. I want you to stay on the line and I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
When the first responders arrived at the home, it immediately became apparent that Allie, Jayden had suffered very severe injuries. The little girl was lying at the end of a bed on a wooden floor, covered by a towel, and her hair was wet. Like he told the emergency operator, Darren also told police the same story of what had happened to Allie, Jayden. That her baby brother had hit his sister in the head with a toy. And this had caused her to fall back, hitting her head on the fireplace. Darren stated that when this had happened, he had actually been on the toilet. But when he realized, he took a cup of water and threw it in Allie, Jayden's face, trying to revive her. Darren had also called Jade prior to calling 911 and given her the same story. Jade had immediately tried to catch a bus back to Darren's house, but had missed it and instead ran back on foot. As little Allie, Jayden was being loaded into the ambulance, Jade would seem to support the story that Darren had told to authorities by confirming that Allie, Jayden was often unsteady on her feet and would fall over. Despite the best efforts of the medical team, little Allie, Jayden would end up being pronounced dead at 4:20 in the afternoon on August 6, 2021. When a post-mortem was performed, it became clear from very early on that Darren's account of what had happened to the child was completely inconsistent with the nature and extent of the injuries that she had suffered. Allie Jayden had a severe skull fracture to the back of her head, as well as an underlying brain injury. She also had retinal hemorrhages, as well as bruising to both sides of her head, the front of her chin, back, waist, hips, and buttocks. It was determined that the skull fracture and head injury had been what killed Allie Jayden, and it was similar to one that would be sustained in a high-speed traffic accident or a fall from a big height. Both Darren and Jade would be placed under arrest in connection with Allie's death. They were each interviewed multiple times. At the time of her first interview, Jade attempted to minimize her fault in breaching the child protection plan by stating that she had not intended on leaving the children with Darren. She claimed that she had only gone to his house in the first place to return his bank card. But when she got there, she realized that Allie Jayden had dropped her pacifier, so Jade retraced her steps trying to find it. And while she was out looking for the pacifier, she claimed she grabbed some milk as well. This meant that the mother left her children in Darren's care. But incidentally, in the short WhatsApp video that had been taken of Allie Jayden once she had been left at Darren's house, she was sitting on the couch with her pacifier in her mouth. Also, Jade had taken a taxi over to Darren's house. So where exactly was she retracing her steps? According to the mother, she had only been a few minutes away when she received a phone call from Darren saying that Allie Jayden was not breathing. She had then told him to call emergency services and ran back to the house. In a later interview, Jade's story to detectives would change, and she was now saying that her and a friend had intended on getting a bus to Belfast so that she could buy a baby carriage. She also said that she originally intended on taking the children with her, but Darren had offered to watch them, so she ended up agreeing. She admitted that earlier she had lied to authorities because she had panicked and was worried about losing custody of her son. This child, however, was immediately removed from Jade's care following Allie Jayden's death and was then placed for adoption. Jade insisted that she did not see the harm in leaving the children with Darren, as he only had one more assessment to go with child services before he was allowed to be around them anyways, and she trusted him. This was despite the fact that she had told social workers just days prior to the tragedy that she had ended things with him. Jade additionally claimed that she had never left the children alone with Darren. Every time he had been in their company, Jade had been there too. Now, during Darren's first interview with authorities, he wouldn't say anything at all, exercising his right to remain silent. In a second interview that was conducted on August 7th, he would say that Jade had originally gone to his house that morning to return his bank card. He informed police that he had told Jade that she could not bring the children inside his home due to the child protection plan. But it was raining heavily outside, and he didn't want the children to get soaking wet, so he allowed them inside. According to Darren, Jade had then realized that Allie Jayden had lost her toy, so she went out to look for it. While she was gone, the two children were playing in his living room when Allie Jayden's little brother struck her in the head with a toy. This caused Allie Jayden to begin crying. So Darren took the baby, lifted him into his seat, and strapped him in. He then went to the bathroom, and while he was on the toilet, Darren heard a loud bang. He had then run into the living room, where he found Allie Jayden laying on the floor between the television and the fireplace. She was not responding, so he had called Jade and then emergency services. Following this, Darren had taken Allie Jayden from the living room into the bedroom and placed her on a mat on the floor. He also tried to revive her by throwing water on her face. But in another interview that was done on August 8th, his story changed. This time, Darren told authorities that he had been watching the children so that Jade could go to Belfast to buy a stroller. He had initially agreed to watch them, but then changed his mind because he knew the child protection plan was in place. But he had then telephoned her and told her that he could not watch the kids and she needed to come back. He also insisted that he had told Jade that he would go to Belfast and buy the stroller for her so they didn't breach the child protection plan. The rest of the story about how Allie Jayden had gotten injured remained the same, and Darren insisted he had not hurt her. However, once Darren was presented with the evidence of Allie Jayden's autopsy and told that his previous version of events of what had happened to her wasn't making sense, his story once again changed. This time he claimed he had been standing in the living room holding the child in his arms when his 2 dogs entered through the back door, then went into the living room where they started going hyper. He stated that this caused both Allie, Jayden, and her younger brother to begin screaming. So out of frustration, Darren had thrown her and she hit her head on the fireplace. According to him, he had consumed marijuana, oxycodone, and diazepam that day. So he had quickly become frustrated with the situation and lost his temper. In May of 2024, Allie Jayden's mother, Jade, would end up admitting child cruelty and pleaded guilty. She was to receive her sentence at a later date. As for Darren Armstrong, he also pleaded guilty and admitted to Allie Jayden's murder. Outside of court, Allie Jayden's aunt, Catherine Doyle, said that Jade should never be left in charge of children again. Kathleen continued by saying, "We're just tired of it all, and we're glad that it's nearly over. We want to move on with our lives. We hope she gets the stiffest sentence possible and is never allowed to care for another child. We also want the maximum sentence possible for Allie Jayden's murder. Justice needs to be done." When it came time for Darren and Jade to receive their sentences, Darren was handed an automatic life sentence. However, he only needs to serve a minimum of 20 years before he's possibly eligible for early release. And as for Jade, the judge said that her flouting of the child protection plan had reached the threshold for a custodial sentence. And since she had already spent a year behind bars, sending her back to prison would be utterly futile. He then described Jade as an exceptionally vulnerable person and sentenced her to just probation.
Thank the police and the judge for his discrepancies and the police for their help and support through what has been a long and very emotional 3 years. Finally, to get to this point and some justice for my daughter Ali. We as a family will never forget our beautiful little girl. She will always be in our hearts. We will never be able to accept that such a beautiful young child can be so cruelly taken away from us. It has been made worse by the actions of the Southern Trust services who continue to compound our grief by refusing to allow us to have our beautiful son returned to his loving family. We will continue to fight as a family to get back to normality, and we will be demanding an inquiry into the actions of the social services that allowed this tragic thing to happen.
A vigil was held for Allie Jayden on August 15, 2021, where neighbors of the little girl gathered on Sycamore Drive to pay tribute to her. During the ceremony, a minute's silence was observed and a local priest said prayers. Dozens of pink balloons were also tied to a nearby fence for the occasion. A bench would be installed at Dungannon Park in memory of Allie Jayden Doyle after local businesses raised money to fund it. Well, thank you for listening to Allie Jayden's story today. I cannot believe the sentences that both Darren and her mother received for this little girl's murder. Jade served only a year behind bars before she was given probation, after she was repeatedly told that she was not supposed to have her children around Darren, much less have him watch them all alone. And he clearly brutally attacked Allie Jayden, but he only received a minimum of 20 years, meaning that he could be out by the time he's only 55 years old. In my opinion, that's no way near enough punishment for what happened to Allie Jayden. What do you think? So if you like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and turn on those notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is at least 3 times every week, usually more. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys. Bye. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.